Welcome to Palm Harbor Local, the podcast dedicated to building community and sharing inspiring stories right from the heart of Palm Harbor, Florida. I'm your host, Donnie Hathaway, and today we're joined by Christina, who is the owner and founder of Soft Touch Laser Hair Removal and recently wrote her first book called Laser Focused. Now, Palm Harbor Local is all about spotlighting individuals and businesses who are making a difference, overcoming challenges, and fostering connections right here in our hometown. If you're passionate about growing together, getting involved, and celebrating the people who are making Palm Harbor thrive, you're exactly where you need to be. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how Christina has built a six-figure business after raising her family as a stay-at-home mom, and then why now was the time for Christina to write her new book called Laser Focused. And then we're also going to talk about how Christina has used social media to connect and build her brand here locally. Now, don't forget to connect with us on Instagram at Palm Harbor Local for behind-the-scenes highlights and join our weekly newsletter at palmharborlocal.com. Now let's dive in and build community together. Well, Christina, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat with you again. And you just wrote a book, but we'll get into that in a sec. But I was, preparing for this conversation today and listening back to our previous one episode that we recorded. And a quote that came to mind was, success is when preparation meets opportunity, right? Like you guys have had many different businesses and stuff, and if anybody's interested in that, they can listen to the previous episode. But, that quote came to mind, and I wanted to get like your thoughts on it, because it seems like everything you guys do, you guys just kind of like go all in at it, and you're always willing to kind of take the risk. Most people probably wouldn't be able to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, you never know until you try. I know it's like so cliche to say that, but it's true, and had I not started my business with the laser hair removal, I wouldn't have gotten here, and it did take failing multiple times, and not that we failed, because we did other businesses and, they were fine, but nothing ever really took off the way that the laser hair removal did. So I think having those experiences just made me more prepared for, where I'm at today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think when we recorded the first one, you were, a year into laser hair removal?
Yeah, about a year in. So we're, in April, we'll be at the 2-year mark.
Okay. Crazy. Mm-hmm. What have you learned the last year?
The last year, I think things are going really well. I feel like I'm really at a place where I can take off even more, but I'm having trouble finding the right people to help me. I've had different marketing teams and different advertising teams, and like they kind of stick around for a couple months, and then ultimately we go our separate ways. And like I'm only one person, and I'm new to this business, and I would really like to find more of a team so that I can grow even more. Mm-hmm.
You think that's probably the hardest part of a business, is like finding the right people to...
Absolutely. Yes, definitely having the right team in place, because like I said, I'm just one person, and, finding people that you can trust.
I get that. What have you, I've noticed like social media wise, like you put a lot of energy and effort into that. What for you has like really helped like your business grow? Because I think a lot of people have ideas, or they have something that they're passionate about and they want to do, but to really turn it into a business that lasts 2 years or longer, I think you really have to understand like how to market, how to get it out to people, and obviously then building a team is like that next level of that. But what are you doing to kind of keep people coming into the doors?
So I think definitely the social media helped me in the beginning. I'm very consistent on posting. I don't shut up about my business. And I feel very fortunate, because laser hair removal is something that everybody actually wants. Yeah. And I feel like the beauty industry is just booming right now. And I'm very fortunate to have a product that actually works and that everybody wants. Men, women, all ages, all ethnicities can benefit from shaving less. So that's a really neat place to be in, because not everybody gets lashes or nails or, hair. Yes, everybody needs a haircut every now and then. But I feel like just laser was a really easy sell. And the device that I invested in is amazing, which was really important for me to have like top quality equipment. And then I think just like I genuinely like meeting people and talking with them, and like I know what I felt like when I had hair issues. As a woman, it's life altering. I know I had a client today that she was like, this has changed my life. And so many people have told me that. And I know it's like, oh, it's just hair, it's just shaving. But as a woman, it really does take a toll on you to constantly have to shave. So I feel like I'm helping people in that regard.
Yeah. How so? Like confidence, like they just feel better.
Just your confidence and like the time, we're busy moms, we're working, we're, trying to take care of everybody else. It's like, when do you have 45 minutes to sit in the shower and shave your entire body?
Yeah.
So I think it's really helpful that I'm providing a service that is making people feel better.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So let's talk about the book. Why write a book?
So everything comes back to the laser business. So obviously, writing a book would hopefully bring me more clients, just getting my story out there. And I think, I offer an in-person service. So I wanted to take my story and take my business, to the broader, masses. And I can do that with digital products, my book, maybe not so much with content, but with speaking engagements. That's something that I can do over Zoom or in person. But I don't have to have clients in Oldsmar for that. So that's really what the purpose of the book was.
And the title of the book, Laser Focused: From Mom Life to CEO.
Yes. So, I think I shared with you previously, and it's in my book, and I talk about it a lot online. I was a stay-at-home mom for 15 years. And although I did have other businesses, nothing really stuck the way I wanted it to. And, it took a toll on me mentally to just be behind the scenes and to just not really have anything going for myself. And I shared this story in my TEDx talk last week, and I got a chuckle. So about a month before I started Soft Touch Laser, I didn't even know that I was going to purchase a device. I was out with some friends, and somebody asked me, they were like, "So what do you do?" And I lied, and I was like, "Oh, I'm a realtor."
Oh, yeah.
Because I was like, "Oh, I'm a mom." I was at a point where I was kind of embarrassed to say I'm a stay-at-home mom, even though it's a privilege, and even though I'm very lucky and I've enjoyed the 15 years I spent home with my kids. It just takes a toll on you.
Yeah, and you've always wanted to do more or something.
I always wanted to do speaking and write a book and have a business where I'm interacting with people. So yeah, it's definitely something that I always wanted to do.
Yeah. So a book is something you like.
Yeah, I always thought about writing a book. I obviously didn't really know what I wanted to write about. I wanted it's a little bit of a biography, so I do talk a lot about my life and how I grew up and what got me into laser.
That's cool. What was the process like for writing a book? I mean, we were talking a little bit before. It's a lot easier than what it used to be.
Yeah, I
right?
think, a lot of people don't realize just how easy it is. And I know I already just did it, so I can say that. But in the beginning, I was like, what am I going to say? How do I have the attention span or the time to just sit and type it all up? So that's when I realized I could just dictate it. So what I did was I dictated it into an email, and I would email it to myself, and then I had a running Word document, and I would just copy paste, and I kind of had it fleshed out in terms of chapters on, the timeline from, where I was born, my family, my parents, and how I got to where I'm at today. And then I did ultimately send it to an editor, and he cleaned it up a little bit and then just uploaded it to Amazon, KDP, and they print it on demand.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So building the outlines, so you kind of had a template of all right, here's all the things that I want to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, we all know our story. It was basically from when I was born to, high school. Then I got married, then I had children, and then we lived all over the country. So, I went in chronological order until, I started the business. And then I go into a little bit about, starting the business and everything that we've done so far.
Investing is extremely important, but it can also be somewhat confusing. With taxes, asset allocation, stocks, bonds, and funds, to know what to do with all this could be overwhelming. Jacob Wade is a financial coach and will work directly with you to put together a roadmap for your money, for life. Jacob has built a name for himself as a finance expert, and you can find his writings in places like Forbes Advisor, Money.com, Investopedia, and Time.com. But he has a passion for helping people create a clear and simple investment roadmap to buy back their time and retire with confidence. If you could use a financial coach on your team, then simply go to palmharborlocal.com/roadmap to book a call with Jacob today and see if hiring a financial coach could help you crush your 2025 goals. Don't wait to have that same feeling next year of not hitting your financial goals. Connect with Jacob today and let's make 2025 your best financial year yet. What is the main theme of the book? Is it just kind of your story, and is it more inspirational, you're trying to inspire other moms?
Definitely more inspirational. So I talk a lot about divine timing because I feel like I lived in so many places. I tried so many things and like they just weren't meant to be for me. And it's because I wasn't ready. I personally wasn't ready and my kids were young. You know, I was able to start the business and do everything that I'm doing because my daughter's driving. You know, the other two are old enough to stay home alone for a few hours. I couldn't do that 5 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's kind of a blessing that things failed for me because how would I have managed them? You know, I'm sure you figure out a way, but that's not even what I wanted. I don't even like being away from my kids like that. You know, even now that they're older, when I have things to do, my son will be like, where are you going now? You know, like it does affect them to be away from them. So I'm glad that they're older now and I can do what I need to do.
Yeah. So like managing those like quote unquote failures, even though they're not failures, or like the other businesses that didn't work out, right? Like you, at the time, like you're putting everything you have into that and you're like, this is going to work, or, you know, you're expecting it to work. How did you handle that, right? And when you close the doors on one business, like what was your process for kind of like, okay, that one didn't work, I'm moving past that?
I mean, it doesn't feel great, you know, and then especially if you talk about it and people know, like at one point I had 5 Airbnb units and then people are like, oh, how are your Airbnbs? And I'm like, no, they're gone. You know, it's just, I guess you just have to brush it off and just, you know, and the beginning when they were doing well, people would ask me like, oh, wow, that's amazing. You're doing Airbnbs. And then when it started not going so well, I did have to just come clean. And, you know, it doesn't feel great, you know, but it didn't work out anymore.
Yeah. I think that's, you know, like just owning up to it, talking about it, discussing it and realizing that it's just part of life.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Just going through those. Yeah. What have you learned in those failures that have allowed you to succeed in this business?
Well, I think definitely you have to manage the income. You know, it's like, it looks great on paper when you're like, oh, wow, I'm making this much. Well, you have to really identify, like, what are you doing with that money? For one, with the laser business, I'm basically reinvesting everything back into the business. So it's profitable and it's, you know, great to see. But that money is not for me. You know, I want to just reinvest into my business. We're really heavy into the meta ads, which when I saw the total, how much I've spent with them, I'm like, wow. But, you know, I that's what's been helpful in getting my name out there, you know, so just everything being reinvested back into the business. I've learned that, you know, instead of just like splurging on myself. Yeah.
Being like the CEO of your business, is it difficult for you to, because you said it's only you, right, like manage the entire thing, like marketing, you know, networking, you know, the actual service itself? Do you find, is that challenging for you to do all of that?
It is challenging, but it's very rewarding because it's what I always wanted and it keeps me busy, you know, and I feel like I like that momentum of constantly like being busy. I know that eventually I have to step away from being the technician and just focusing on the business, but I've already built a clientele that like wants me to be there, which a lot of people are understanding, and I'm like, hey, so-and-so's covering for me today. I'm out of town or I'm doing a speaking engagement, and people are understanding about that. So I think ultimately the goal would be to step away completely from being the technician and then seeing how I can grow the business after that.
Yeah. Do you enjoy like the technician side better or like the CEO life?
I like both, you know, I really do. I like talking with people, you know, it's like soothing to do the treatment on people. And then I just love when they get the results and they're so happy with it, you know?
That's cool. I mean, I think every business at its core is like a relationship business. Like there's, you know, that's what I learned in real estate when I was probably like 2 years into the business, but I think that's what I really fell in love with and why I wanted to stick with like the residential side, is just meeting different people, having conversations, like, you know, hearing their story, their background, and, you know, that was just in my mind at that time was just unexpected that I would enjoy that, but it's something, I think it's at the core of every business, is really like building relationships with your customers.
Absolutely. And it's like, you know, my service can be intimate. You know, we're doing the Brazilian or, you know, I'm in their face, you know, lasering them. And like, you'd be surprised, like people want to talk and people share some pretty, you know, intimate details about their lives. And like, sometimes they're happy, sometimes they're sad, but you know, it is very personal. It's a very personal experience with the clients, and I do enjoy that.
Yeah. Did you expect that getting into it?
Well, I had done this before, and so I knew that I had to be personable and like chit chat and like and I'm a client at the end of the day. I think my hair girl knows more about me than my best friend, because that's just something that women do. We get in that chair and we just start talking. So I did expect it, but I didn't realize like how personal some of the details would get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. Mm-hmm. So what's next for your business?
That is the question that I'm looking for myself. I feel like I constantly keep pushing myself to, hit new goals, and then I hit them and then I'm like, okay, now what? And then I don't want to also like outdo myself in that sense. Like I have to be grateful and content with where I'm at. And I think I just need to ride the wave for now and just see what happens.
Is that difficult to do, to kind of just like sit back and be like, okay, I'm going to be a little more patient and let the business grow naturally instead of like...
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And, also you can't just always be chasing. I feel like I have a beautiful website. I have the book. I have, a ton of Google reviews. I've worked very hard for all of that. And I feel like I just need to attract now. And they'll come because people, a girl came yesterday and I was like, oh, how did you find me? Because her name wasn't familiar. And she was like, oh, I Googled. And she's like, I read your reviews. You have great reviews, Mm-hmm. So now I need to just sit back and people know that I exist and they know that it's out there. Mm-hmm. So hopefully, it'll just grow like that.
Yeah. So you've laid the foundation and
Mm-hmm.
now it's just kind of like attracting people to the business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. With your book and speaking, like, do you enjoy speaking? Is that kind of what the goal of the book is? Like, I want to do more speaking engagements to drive more traffic to the business, or?
Yeah, I think, anything that I can do to drive the business. I think the soft touch laser at its core will always be about laser. Like, that's mm-hmm. what I've always wanted it to be about. These are just extra little things, just to help promote it. But, yeah, I think the speaking is helpful because, like I said, I have an in-person service. So if I can speak and I can sell books, that's something that I can do outside of the Tampa area. Mm-hmm. So in terms of expanding without necessarily buying another device, this is helpful in that regard.
Yeah. Do you ever think about opening like multiple locations?
I have thought about it. Obviously there's a risk involved in doing that, and I also don't want to like oversaturate the market. But mm-hmm. I think there's definitely room for growth mm-hmm. and having multiple locations, even if it's not in the Tampa area.
Yeah. Is there an opportunity to, I guess, expand on services like beyond laser hair, or is that like pretty typical for like that type of business? Like you just, like that's your focus, that's your expertise,
yeah.
and you stick with
I mean, I think there's definitely potential to grow into a full-blown med spa, but yeah. I'm not really interested in that. I've thought about a couple other services to offer, but I think I like focusing just on hair removal. And there mm-hmm. are different business models. I know a girl that has 3 locations in Boston, and she only does hair removal with the same device that I have. Yeah. So I feel like, there is a way to just focus on hair removal.
Yeah. I feel like I've seen that with like health spas or something like that, mm-hmm. where they're focused on like they get the cold plunging and
yeah, that's definitely popular, and I love all that wellness stuff, and I think it's great, but the market does get a little oversaturated, just like with the Airbnbs. Airbnb was great in the early 2020, even mm-hmm. 2018, and then just too many people got into it. Mm-hmm. So you become your own competition kind mm-hmm. of, and it's just impossible to really like make a profit. So I want to focus on the hair removal for now, for sure. Yeah,
I like that. And just it simplifies it, right? Just mm-hmm. keep it simple.
Yeah, keep it simple. And then you also, you're an expert in your field in just hair removal. So I kind of like that route for now.
Yeah. Do you guys still have the Airbnbs, or you sold all of them?
No, we got rid of all of them.
Yeah. Was mm-hmm. that tough?
I was ready. I was like ready to move on. Yeah. It just, it got to a point where like cleaners weren't showing up. And then I'm like in another state. And I'm like, I asked you for this one thing. Yeah. I had a lady that was like, I'm on the way, and still didn't show up.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, I think definitely in Pinellas County, we've become oversaturated. And I think
mm-hmm.
a lot of them, people are starting to realize that and sell them. I mean, that's why we sold ours, right? It just
mm-hmm.
became too much. And that same idea. It's just, it's hard to manage it and find the right people.
Right.
They're going to be consistent with it.
Yeah, definitely.
So the book, where can people get the book?
So the book is available. I have a few copies at my store, but it's on Amazon. So it's print to order. You just place your order, and I think most people get it within 2 days. Like if you have Prime, it's pretty quick.
Yeah, that's amazing that's that's even possible now.
I know, and I don't know anything about book publishing other than this route. I did a little bit of research, but it just, everything else seemed very costly and just very complicated. And this honestly was, I'm not sure quite how much I spent, maybe a few $100, between the editor and the design work, but it was very affordable and just very quick. I think where people get lost in life is, thinking about something and actually taking action. And that's actually something that I talk about in the book, is everything with soft touch laser happened so naturally and organically because of how quick everything happened. Had I sat on the idea, and not started for another 6 months, like who knows what would have happened. I think you have to really like strike when you're ready and when you have the idea.
I feel like that's something that you and Alex are both really great at. Like, is that like being able to take action quickly on ideas, and I don't think a lot of people are great at that, or they're hesitant, maybe because it's like a lack of confidence or whatever it is. But is that something that you've just been aware of, or just something have always naturally?
I think we've kind of always been that way. I know I'm like hyper and I'm like can do things fast. I've always been that way. It doesn't always work in my favor. I mean, I've had girls come and interview and I'm like, you're hired. And I get excited and I want to help them. And then like 2 weeks later, they're like, this isn't for me. Or I live too far. Or, I don't have the clientele, because I have tried to like add other techs and like try to grow and just have people come and grow their own book of business. But it doesn't work that way. Yeah. So yeah, it's not always a good thing to be quick like that,
Yeah. What have you learned like hiring people, like finding the right people,
It's so hard because at the end of the day, it's my business and no one is going to care as much as me. Yeah. I've been very lucky that, I had a few techs that stayed, more than 6 months. And, being that they're young, I think that's awesome, and I have a 17-year-old and I know how they act, so my last tech, she was 20 and then she just turned 21. So we like celebrated her 21st birthday. And, that's very young, but she was always responsible. She was what I expected out of an employee, so I'm grateful that I've had, some really good techs. And then, like I said, I've had some girls that thought this was an opportunity for them and then it didn't work out,
Are you providing them with like business, or they have to like get their own?
So the idea is for them to have their own, clients, but if, I try to let them do some of my clients as well. But like I said, also like people that met me only want me. Yeah. So, but I'm only one person. So, I do have like Mondays and Wednesdays off, and I have like somebody else come in on those days.
Yeah. I feel like that's the, like as the business is growing, that's something I've struggled with as well. But like, when do you add people? When do you add an assistant and that sort of stuff? That's always a challenge, I think, in my mind of figuring that out exactly. Yeah. Maybe it's just, there's never a right time. It's just,
I mean, it's all trial and error. I've worked with people and, they've had some great ideas and we've tried them and then they fail, so, and there's nothing wrong with trying, but it's like, I think it's very easy for people to point out, what you're doing wrong or what you could be doing, but they're not actually doing it. It's like the age old, those who can't do teach. And it's like, you can tell me how to grow a business, but I actually grew one. Yeah. So, it's like, it's hard to find that balance. And I'm open to suggestions, but at the end of the day, it's like, it is my business. It's my baby. Like, I'm the one that has to care more than anyone else.
Even if there's another, soft touch laser hair, another business just like yours, like the way they grow could be completely different than the way that you grow your business, right?
Yeah, so. Absolutely. I didn't plan on doing this whole content thing. Like that kind of just fell on my lap and I took it and ran with it. But like there are plenty of companies that have no social media presence and do great. And then so when people do ask me for advice and I'm like, the first thing I say, I'm like, oh, well, grow your socials. And I'm like, well, that worked for me. It's not necessary for everyone, Yeah.
Have you enjoyed being more active on social media?
I do. I've enjoyed it. I think it does get to a point where you start associating yourself with views and likes.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just post daily because it's the right thing to do, and I walk away. I don't look at the views. I don't look at the likes. I just post for consistency, But yeah, I think I'm over trying to like go viral and all that stuff. Like some videos do really well, and doesn't seem to be a rhyme or reason as to why.
Right. Yeah.
So I just post it, it's out there, and whatever happens.
How do you go about like creating content? Is that something that's challenging for you, or are you just constantly thinking of, like, if I'm working, I'm creating content, and then I'll think of a post later? Like, what's your process?
Basically, so what I do is like in between clients, like I'll just look through reels and find trending sounds, and I'll just record them and save them.
Okay.
Another thing that I do is I use like the teleprompter app. And I kind of just like, when I want to do more like factual posts, so that I'm like just speaking like properly about the laser or about my book, I'll do the teleprompter and record like that. And I just try to have like a lot of things saved so that it's not something I'm doing every day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like that. Have you tried any of the, like on Instagram, right? Is that where you're most active?
Mostly on Instagram, yeah.
Have you tried trial reels?
So I had the feature and now it's gone.
Oh, no.
So I think Instagram rolls out certain features for certain creators, and then they turn it off if it's not working, So I did play with it a little bit, but now it's not there anymore.
Interesting. Yeah, I've been doing that and just posting, like I'll create, the same reel and I'll change the audio or change like the captions or something on there just to see,
And do different numbers come up for different posts?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And then once obviously once it's a trial reel, then you can share it to your feed if you want, or you just leave it in the trial stage and it just sits there, right?
Do you look for a certain number when it's a trial? Do you say, okay, I'll post it when it hits, 20,000 or 2,000 or whatever?
Yeah, that's a good question. My goal is to try to get like 10,000 views on each video, right? And that just doesn't happen, right? So if I see something that takes off pretty quickly, then I'll usually post it to the feed or whatever. So if I get 1,000, 2,000 views in the first couple of days, then I'll probably post it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's like, have you seen videos where it's like they show you a room full of 500 people, and it's like, that's a lot of people. So when you get a video and it's like it only gets 500 views, like you should even be happy with that, and I try to take that into perspective, and then it is almost like chasing a number, because I have had videos that hundreds of thousands, and then when you only see 500, you're like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's better than nothing, It's still 500 eyeballs that saw your video, and people's attention spans are like this big, so I think even half the views are just like swiping and just like barely looking at it. So it's interesting with the book. I've sold 20 copies. Nice. Exactly. So it launched on September 1st, and today's the 14th, and I've sold, I think, 20 copies on the dot, maybe 21. I have to double check. But, in my head, I'm like, well, it's not enough, but I'm even happy that I wrote the book and that 20 people bought it,
Yeah.
So just being grateful.
Yeah, and how much you put into that book, like, and the people that bought it, like, they're going to read your entire story.
Well, that's a funny thing. That's what I was going to say. I'm like, people can barely watch a video on Instagram. Like, are they actually going to read a whole book? So I hope they do.
Yeah. And then they get to know you on a much different level than just watching a video or something like that.
Yeah.
Too.
So it's funny. My aunts read it. My mother-in-law read it.
Yeah.
Like front to back. Like they finished it. They read it.
Nice.
But I don't know anybody else that has actually finished it. My husband read it. He did. Yeah. Before I published it, he read the whole thing. So.
Yeah. Okay. But no one's reached out to you and that you know.
I like good close friends and family. I know that have purchased it, but like random people that I don't know have not purchased it.
Yeah. Are you? How are you promoting the book? What are you doing to kind of get it out there?
So I'm doing reels.
Okay.
I just do reels and stories. I have it on Facebook. Actually, I posted it yesterday on Facebook Marketplace and a couple like mom groups that I'm a part of.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll see what comes from that. But any ideas? I'm open to options.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Like you just have to be, like going back to the social media thing, and I've like reposted reels, maybe they do really well one time, and then I'll repost them, a month or two later, and then it reaches a different audience and they don't do as well. But like you are with your Instagram account, like just being consistent, right? And even like posting the book in those different Facebook groups and stuff, like every single month or whatever it is, because one time you might catch the right person and they share it with 5 other friends. And
definitely. I think there's so many courses and, strategies and this and that. And I don't think anybody really knows, right. what makes videos take off or what's really the magic,
Mm-hmm.
I think consistency is more important than anything,
Yeah, and it's gonna be different for everybody. Just like
mm-hmm.
we talked about before, it's different, for each business and
mm-hmm.
how it grows and stuff.
Yeah. So, but it's been a nice ride, even going back to some of the memories of my childhood and like all the places that we've lived and like even, different stories that I try to tell, like about my kids or my family. I think it's been a nice trip down memory lane.
Mm-hmm. Did your kids read the book?
No, actually, no, they haven't. I'm going to get on them about that.
Yeah, that's funny. Are you and Alex competitive on like how many copies of each other's books?
So getting ready for the TEDx talk, the VIP ticket holders received a copy of the book.
Okay.
So we had to order a certain number of books. So I ordered the author copies, which are at Amazon's cost, which is like nothing. It's like $3.
Okay.
But Alex didn't order his author copies in time, so he ordered the retail version. So when I checked the report, he had sold like 30 books, and I was like, how did you get 30 sales?
Yeah.
And then he was like, idiot, I bought them myself.
Yeah.
And so we laughed about that. So I guess, yes, the answer is yes. We are kind of competitive with each other.
Nice. Okay. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Christina, thanks for being here again. Thanks for coming back.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited for your book, and hopefully it's very successful for you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Palm Harbor Local. We are incredibly grateful for our sponsors who make this show possible, so please be sure to support them whenever possible, and let's keep building community together. Until next time, stay connected, stay involved, and keep making Palm Harbor an amazing place to call home.